Hello and welcome to the Harrogate podcast with me, Andrew Gray. During the Harrogate podcast, it's my job to interview and deconstruct the movers and shakers in this wonderful Harrogate bubble. And today, boy, do we have a mover and shaker in this Harrogate bubble. Stuart Wright, welcome. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Andrew. Thank you for inviting me.
It's okay. Now, unfortunately, I had to cancel a couple of these interviews with you for various reasons. I'm delighted that we've now got the chance to do it here in September 2018. Now, you're well known around these parts for running multiple businesses and, of course, for your coaching business. But have I described you correctly? Describe yourself to my audience, please.
Well, first and foremost, I guess I identify myself as a business owner because that's the thing that I've always enjoyed the very, very most. I love small business, really passionate about it, and I've run my own business since I was 21 years old. But more recently, I've been very, very fortunate to become the guide for many other successful business owners in the local business community. And that has given me a completely new purpose in my life, helping other people to achieve financial freedom, business success, or even just get their businesses off the ground. That I do for fun. Business I do to earn a living.
Understood. Your first business at 21. Now, I can't think of many people I know, especially the people I've interviewed already, who started a business at 21. Trace it for us. What was this business and how did it do?
So the way that it came about, I actually always wanted to run my own business. So I ended up going to Cranfield School of Management and doing something called the Graduate Enterprise Programme while I was doing my business studies degree in Cambridge. And well, it was back in 1990, height of a recession. Came out of Cranfield with an amazing business plan, and I went to see the local business bank manager. I won't mention the name of the bank because I don't want to embarrass anybody. But I was told at that time that I was too young and I needed to go out and get some experience in order to be financially viable for a bank to loan me some money for my first business.
Sounds familiar.
Yes, I'm absolutely certain that I wasn't alone. But not feeling too crestfallen, I decided that I would not take that advice. I would go and run my own business anyway with my own resources. Now, as challenged as any student would be after 3 years at university financially, I only had 26 quid in my pocket. That's all I had to my name. And I thought to myself, well, what am I going to do now? How am I going to get myself a business off the ground? And I remember having the voice of Lord Alan Sugar in my head, because he always said, do something that you're good at. The only thing that I was good at, Andrew, after coming out of university for 3 years was making sandwiches. I'd lived on the things for the last 3 years.
No pasta?
No. I lived on sandwiches because I needed to have a lot more money for other diversions, if you see what I mean.
I think I know where you're going with that.
Yeah. So what I did was I took my £26 and I made a basket of sandwiches and I started hawking them around the offices in Harrogate. And lo and behold, the business took off. I turned that £26 of equity into a business that turned over £1.5 million in 6 years, and I had 40 staff working for me. So that's how I got my first business off the ground. Now, there'll be people out there who will remember Bumbles Sandwiches, and we ran that business for 13 years and then sold it. And then I started my second business, which was a jewellery company, 5 for Silver, within months of selling that business. So from sandwiches to silver.
Very different profit margins, I'm guessing, on those.
Different profit margins, very different business models, but both equally fun and equally rewarding.
Okay, well, could you draw some parallels between those two sectors, sandwiches, jewellery? What were the skills which were useful to both of those sectors?
Well, that's interesting because it was pretty much the same skill in terms of the way I acquired customers, which has now changed radically because I learned more about how to market and sell myself and my business after the experience with Bumbles and 5 for Silver. But I actually just really had one or two marketing strategies back in those days. One, very common one that you'll hear from lots of small business owners, word of mouth. Probably the most powerful way to grow a business. But if it's the only thing you rely on, it's kind of reactive, not so proactive. And the other one was cold calling. Now, most people hate cold calling.
I do.
Well, I was probably in that majority myself as well, but I didn't know any different. So I literally went around knocking on doors. So the way that I grew my second business, Five for Silver, was I used to put showcases in hotels. I used to put them in free of charge, and then the hotel would allow me to stock my jewellery and sell the jewellery to their guests, and then the hotel would get a cut. So I had very little overhead and managed to grow that business very, very quickly. Similar sort of business model really to the sandwiches, because when I started off with sandwiches, I used to sell all my sandwiches sale or return to local garages. So there was the big garage down on Skipton Road, I think it's Dragon Garage, and the BP garage up on Woodlands Corner, I think it is. Yes. We used to sell hundreds of sandwiches. Now here's the thing, we used to have a bit of a cult following in Harrogate, because this was before there were kebab shops around. So when people used to turf out of the nightclubs, they used to go and get our sandwiches. So we used to sell tons to people that were hungry on the way home after having a few beers.
What was your biggest seller then?
Okay, well actually we had a number. Probably the best was our club sandwich.
Yummy.
Which was a great one, but also we had one which was smoked ham and Swiss cheese, which was one of my favourites actually.
Got it. So after the jewellery store, I suppose you sold that as well, is that correct?
I did. I sold the jewellery business, but actually it was while I was running the jewellery business that I first came across coaching, because I felt that I wasn't as successful as a business owner as I could have been. And I was introduced to a guy called Chris Fordy, who was an action coach. I actually went to one of his seminars, and it blew me away. What I suddenly realized what I didn't know about running a business when I met that guy. So I engaged action coach for my own business back in 2007. And I managed to get that jewelry business working without me and very, very profitable within a very short space of time. I also had the opportunity, once the business was running without me, to get involved with a new business model that was starting with a local company called EnviroEvent, which I'm sure many people have heard of. EnviroEvent were launching a franchise department for the company, and I was the pilot franchise owner. So I grew that business again to work without me by about 2012, and the rest is history. You know, since then I've started and still run and sold multiple businesses and became a business coach myself, so that I could help other business owners create businesses that are very profitable and that can work without them. Because I think the major thing about business is when you go into a business for yourself, it can be very time consuming. I used to work 90 hours a week, so I recognize the pain of people that I meet these days that look 3 or 4 or sometimes 40 years older than they should do. And I understand that really most of us go into business to get a better life rather than to have the life sucked out of us. So certainly that was my journey. Creating a business that works without you means that the business is more profitable. It means that the business is more valuable. But I think the most valuable thing that we all have, and I'm sure that everyone will agree with me, is our time. So there's no point in having a successful business that earns you loads of money if you haven't actually got the time to either invest it or spend it, and most importantly, spend it with the people that you really care about. So your friends and family, and doing the things that you really enjoy doing.
Agreed, entirely, 100%, I'm with you. But today, where do your interests lie? Of course, the action coaching, but I think you have some other enterprises up your sleeve, like you've always seemed to have another thing.
I don't think I will ever, while I'm above ground, not have businesses that I own. I love small business. It's been my life since I was about 21 years old, other than my family. And I classify the teams that work with me in my businesses as my family as well. It's like having one big, extended, happy family. So I get so much pleasure out of growing and starting new businesses. I've never actually bought a business yet, but starting businesses is a passion of mine. I've now started 5 businesses in my life, and I'm probably going to start more. In fact, I've got 2 businesses that I'm going to be launching next year, but I'm not going to say too much about that at the moment. But yeah, absolutely, I don't think I'll ever not have a business, so I'm really passionate about that. But the coaching is something that I almost do for fun, to be honest with you.
You say that. Just going back to the sale of business, I don't know many people that have sold a business. Now, people listening to this podcast, probably SMEs in Harrogate, the owner managers, so on. Maybe that is the holy grail for most of them, is to sell a business. What percentage of businesses are ever sold?
In the UK, less than 3% of businesses ever sell for cash.
And you've done it a few times. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. A question for you. You've had businesses and they've become fairly sizable and then you sold. Why have you sold when you did, when perhaps those businesses could have become the next Coca-Cola or Apple?
The only business that I regret selling was my sandwich business. And I sold that before I knew what I was doing, really.
Why the regret?
Because if I had retained that business now, then it would have been a much, much larger business by now. We'd probably be turning over 70, 80 million. Now, that was my first business, and your first business, I guess, if there's anybody out there that's like me who's started multiple businesses, I always have, I guess, the greatest affection for the first business that I ever started. And yes, I have regretted selling that business, especially as I didn't maximize the value of it because I didn't know what I was doing. I actually got to the stage where I wanted to sell the business because it felt as if it was sucking the life out of me. This is why I ended up making sure that I didn't make the same mistake again, and my life changed when I employed a coach. And I don't want anyone to go through the same sort of pain that I went through in business. You should never sell a business for less than it's worth. You should always see it through to the conclusion that most of us want, which is to sell it for its highest value or get it to the stage where it creates a passive income. That's my belief. I mean, I know there's other reasons why people run businesses, but certainly in my world, I think that's the holy grail for most people.
Understood. Startup businesses, my understanding is that you are one of the few coaches out there that specialise or at least help the startup world. Surely you're not hiding to nothing. Most startup businesses fail irrespective of whether they've got a coach. How have you helped startup businesses thus far?
You see, I think that most startup businesses have got a much better chance of succeeding if they do get some outside help. And I don't see there being an amazing amount of help for startups. I know that there has always been an appetite from the government to help startup businesses, but I think the big challenge is actually getting somebody to coach or mentor startup businesses, because it doesn't feel financially viable for the coach or the mentor to do so, because most coaches or mentors earn their living from their coaching business. For me, I'm doing it for a different reason. I feel that if there was more help for startup businesses in the early stages, then more of them would survive. The statistics are very, very scary. 80% of small businesses fail within the first 5 years. Of the 20% that remain, 80% of those will fail in the following 5 years. Now, that's a lot of people's hopes, dreams, ambitions, time, effort, and money down the toilet. Now, if there are people like me out there who can assist and make sure that those statistics are reversed, it may sound a little bit utopian, but I believe that it is our responsibility to help in the small business community, help those businesses get off the ground, because we can. You know, I find it very difficult to turn somebody away who I know I can help just because they can't afford to pay my fees. So I do put on special free seminars and workshops for small businesses, because I'm passionate that that should be an extra career option for anybody out there. It should be something that people consider as an alternative to the regular lifestyle of go out, get an apprenticeship, get a job, go to university, get a job, work for somebody else. If there was that as a viable opportunity, I think more people would do it, and our economy would be all the better for it.
So that's a very compelling pitch, but isn't there a sort of catch-22 here, which is you were successful with your £26 and you turned into a multi-million-pound business and you made mistakes along the way. Therefore, failure is a useful component to any entrepreneur's life. They need to have failed. By having a coach, are people then missing out on that failure stage, so they don't even know when they're going to be hitting a failure, and therefore are they missing out on some learning by not failing, if you catch my question?
Absolutely not, because a wise man once said, a clever person learns by their own mistakes, but it takes a genius to learn from the mistakes of others. One of the best things about having a coach or a mentor is that it's a lot cheaper to learn from their mistakes than it is from your own.
I always say that to my junior lawyers as well. It's learn from the errors that you see others do when you do. So that's the smart thing. I'm glad you've said it. With your entrepreneurial powers, and I would call them powers, how has that influenced your family? I think you're married and you've got 2 children, I think, become entrepreneurs. How have you fathered and been a husband and so on, and with all these hours that you must have been working?
Well, I felt very passionately that I wanted to make sure that my daughters had a different schooling, if you like. I'm a big believer that the education system in the UK shepherds us into a very narrow field when we leave education, further education, because really the curriculum is still very much geared towards go out, get an apprenticeship, get some qualifications and get a job and work for somebody else. What it doesn't do is it doesn't really open up the possibilities of running your own business. And yet I hear so many people that are employed who say things like, oh, I'd really like to run my own business, or I wish I'd done it. Now, I didn't want that to happen to my daughters, so I wanted to make it a viable option for them to consider the idea of running their own business at an early age. And I'm delighted to say that both of them have decided that that is a path that they want to take. I guess just by showing them that there was another way, they had the choice as to which way they decided to go. But they both decided that they feel that entrepreneurialism is a way forward for them as well.
Well, give us a pitch for their businesses. Tell us how they're going, if you mind going down.
No, I don't mind at all. So my daughter Charlotte, she, at the age of 17, she was halfway through her A-level year at Harrogate Grammar, and she decided that it wasn't for her. She didn't want to she didn't want to get A-levels, she didn't want to go to university, and she felt she was wasting her time. So she decided that she would go into business for herself in something that she knew she was good at, which is social media. Well, what millennial isn't good at social media? So that was a smart option to start off with. And I'm proud to say that she launched her business and has been very successful with it already. So she now does social media marketing for small to medium-sized businesses. My daughter Chloe, more interested in property. So she's currently looking for her first 2 buy-to-let properties. She's put herself through a course to understand how to start a property business. And at the same time, she is also now a business development manager. So she's learning the skills of sales, which in business, very, very useful skill to have. I'm sure you'll agree.
Yes, and I'm sure you'll also agree that there are probably no 2 other daughters in the Harrogate area who've set up businesses before they were 20. I can't think of any other people that set up businesses before they were 20. Well done to the family Wright, and good luck to Chloe and Charlotte. Now, obviously, you're a dad and husband and business person and so on. Do you have a strict morning routine? If so, tell us about it.
I do have a strict morning routine. So I get up at 5 o'clock every morning. I know, but it was as a result of reading a book called The Miracle Morning. And it changed my life. It's a fantastic routine that I have. The very first thing that I do when I get up in the morning is called IVVMs.
Okay, tell us about that.
Idealization, visualization, verbalization, and materialization. So it's a process of really revising the goals that you've set for yourself, whether it be your life's goals or your monthly goals or even your daily goals. And I like to visualize myself as being in a situation where I've actually achieved all the things that I want to achieve, whether it is on a long-term basis or whether it's a short-term basis. So I often look at what I've got coming up for the day, and I will visualize the success of the things that I'm planning on doing in that day. It's something actually that was used very, very successfully first and foremost by Jack Nicklaus, great golfer. He used to visualize a whole 18 holes of golf the night before he played. He then visualized the whole 18 holes of golf in the morning when he got up, and then he visualized every single shot that he played before he played it. So it was very, very successful for him, very successful for people like Muhammad Ali, for Johnny Wilkinson, for David Beckham. So it works really well in sport, but it also, for me, it works really well in life as well.
But getting up at 5 isn't always possible if your kids have kept you up all night. I guess your two are much older. But, do you work out as well? Is there a particular breakfast that Stuart Wright has, and I sense that there will be?
Yeah, the breakfast of champions is a nice steamed broccoli with some tomatoes, a drizzle of lemon and some olive oil.
Every day?
Not every day, no. I do vary it. Sometimes it might be green beans, sometimes it might be asparagus, and I also like avocado with a poached egg as well now and again.
All delicious. Is there a workout built in there? I'm expecting you to be at the gym for an hour as well, somehow in this busy day.
Well, actually, because of I very strongly believe that you need to have your routine based on your biorhythms. So actually, working out for me comes at the end of the day.
Okay, and talk me through that. Is it a run? Is it a gym? What would you do?
Always in the gym. Yeah, I either swim or cycle. I used to run a lot, but I'm getting to a certain age now, and my doctor tells me that running's not so good for men of a certain age because it doesn't do your knees any good. So I tend to cycle or swim now.
I hear that a lot. Now, the morning routine was my question, but having an early morning routine like yours at 5 o'clock surely suggests that you're going to bed at 8:30 and you're missing out on a heck of a lot of fun. I mean, is that right that you go to bed early, and is that detrimental to businesses, emails, social media, family life? For example, The Bodyguard on BBC One, everyone's watching it, I'm watching it. Can you watch it if you're really rising at 5 o'clock?
No, you should get to bed at 10. I'm normally asleep within 5 or 10 minutes of going to bed because part of my nighttime routine is to listen to an audiobook. But I actually now listen to short audiobooks on an app called Blinkist. So if
I use it as well.
Do you? Excellent. Well, yeah, anybody out there who likes reading lots and lots of books like me, but just want to get the juice out of a book, Blinkist is a great thing. So I listen to Blinkist and I fall asleep every night.
Blinkist is not something I could possibly listen to go to sleep. There's just too much in there, too much juice, as you say. Speaking of books and so on, which books should Harrogate SME owners read, or anybody read, from a motivational point of view?
There are some absolute staples, some essentials, and if you haven't read it, the number one business book to read if you're an SME is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Brilliant book, one of the best books ever written. The subtext of it is why most small businesses fail and what to do about it. Sometimes it's just the title of the book that really gets you going. I mean, that subtext for me was a life-changing book for me, reading The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Then there's things like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Again, an absolute must. Those are really great rules to live by. Anything at all by Jim Rohn. I think he's probably the godfather of personal development. One of my favorite things that Jim says is work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Because if you work hard on your job, you can earn a living. If you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune. So anything by Jim Rohn is absolutely going to be on message. If it's about sales, you've got to go to The Master of Sales, which is Zig Ziglar. If it's about personal development, then anything by Tony Robbins. But two of my favorite books by Anthony Robbins are Unleash the Giant Within and Unlimited Power, two of his very first books. Brilliant books. Yeah, so that would get most people started, I reckon, don't you?
I've read some of them. Foolishly, I thought the E-Myth was all about email. And so someone gave it to me, I thought, I don't want a book about email. Obviously it means the entrepreneur myth, I guess, is what it's all about. Yeah, you're right, it is a great book and most small business owners should read it. Talking about most small business owners, Do you think most people should run their own business, or are there certain personality types, certain people that really should not be bothered setting up their own business?
Do you know what? I've never met anyone yet who I don't think could run their own business. I think it comes down to the will and the motivation and whether you would actually want to do it. That's it. I can't think of a single person that I've met who shouldn't run their own business. Really, it is just about making sure that you understand that the success in business is the same as success in life. There is a formula to it. Everything starts with a dream. Once that dream starts to become reality, it then turns into a goal. So in other words, it then has to become more specific, more measurable, and probably time bound. Once you've got the goal, then you've got to create the plan. And where many businesses fail is that they don't invest the time, effort, and energy in the plan in the first place. And the plan has to be something that is alive, not a document that goes in the bottom drawer and gathers dust. It needs to be something that you follow day by day, if not hour by hour. Then once you've got the plan, you need to understand what you need to learn. There needs to be some learning. It's impossible to be successful in business if you don't invest enough time learning all the things, the skills that you need to put together to make this thing work. And then, of course, one of the most important things at the end of that is to actually take some action. If you do all of those things, anybody out there can be successful. It doesn't matter what personality type you've got.
That's a very different answer to some of the other business coaches I've heard giving answers to that question. And thank you for your own take on things. Turning to Harrogate, our audience is predominantly Harrogate, I'm sure. Is Harrogate a good place to do business? If so, why?
I believe it is, yes, because one of the things that has always inspired me about Harrogate is the number of self-made successful business owners that there are here. And I can tell you now, above all, the most important thing that I think people need to understand if they want to be successful is between where we are now and where we want to be is this great big jungle. And let's take, for example, going out and starting your own business or being successful in business. It's a jungle. But the challenge for most of us is we go out and we attack it with a butter knife. And we wonder why 4 years in, we're on our hands and knees, our hands are bleeding, and we can't even see the vision of this amazing business that we wanted to create. And yet just 3 feet away, someone else has cut their path through the jungle. And if all we did was just follow those people through the jungle on the path that they've already cut, we can all get to that success. So the great thing about Harrogate is it is bursting at the seams with people who have cut their path through the jungle. And if we just commit to mastery, which is following them down their path, learn from them, take them out for lunch, go to their seminars, read their books, read their blogs, understand from them what it has taken for them to be successful, then you can be successful too.
And why is Harrogate special in that it's got so many of these self-made people? Is it because it's a nice place to live and inevitably people who are perhaps better off come to live in Harrogate, or is there something else? Is it the water?
I think I'm not sure it's the water, although it is delicious. I think it is because, there is a lovely lifestyle here, and if you are a success-oriented person, then usually you'll find that people who have achieved a certain amount of success in their lives also feel that they deserve a certain type of lifestyle, and the lifestyle in Harrogate is amazing.
I would agree with all of that. Stuart, let's talk about networking. I've been to plenty of networking groups in Harrogate. Some I like, some I don't like. And Harrogate seems to me to have more business networks almost than it does businesses. Do you have any tips for people that listen to this podcast about which sort of groups they should go to and how to approach them?
I think to start off with, it all depends on the objectives of the individual. And I think that's where it starts. Know your objectives before you go to the networking group that you're going to. If it's really just to kind of go out there and start getting your face known and your name known a little bit and maybe learn for some other people, then you're probably going to go to some of the more casual networking events out there, because you'll achieve that aim without a shadow of a doubt. But if you want to be more focused and you've actually decided that networking is going to be an important lead generation strategy for you, then I think you need a little bit more structure. Now, you can either create your own structure by actually coming up with a strategy for your networking, or you can go to one of those groups that already has a structure to it. Like, for example, BNI, Profit Club, Network B2B, 4N. They all have a format and they have a structure, and I think they all have different nuances, but actually you've just got to go to one or two of them and decide which one suits you the best.
Okay, sound advice, certainly, but it's quite nerve-wracking going to some of those networking groups for the first time. I mean, should we go in as newbies and shaking hands, giving business cards out, or should we, I don't know, how should a newbie approach a networking group?
I'll be honest, I think that a newbie should potentially learn a little bit about how to network effectively before they go. Because for me, what you've just summed up there is something that we all suffer from, which is fear. We get a little bit of fear, but generally the fear that most of us have is the fear of the unknown. Now, the fear of the unknown is bound to disappear when you know what you're going to expect. So if you go on the internet, you'll find tons and tons and tons of blogs and videos and advice about how to network effectively. There are books out there as well on how to network effectively. One of my favorite books is a book called The Jelly Effect by Andy Bounds. One of the best books ever written on sales and networking. I thoroughly recommend that before you start networking, if you feel a little bit of trepidation about it, do some learning and you'll feel a lot more relaxed about it.
In a previous answer, you talked about the Profit Club. I've heard of it, I don't know much about it. I sense you might have your fingers in the Profit Club or may well be running it. Go on, give us a sales pitch for the Profit Club, if it is yours.
Yes, so Profit Club is something that I feel very passionate about, because what I did when I started Profit Club is I wanted to create a small business community where business owners can come together and share best practice. It's not just about sharing their networks and sharing referrals. I believe when you put a group of business people together, that happens naturally anyway and doesn't necessarily need to be forced. What it's really about is business education, learning from other people about what's working well for them, their successes, also some of their mistakes as well. As we said earlier on, it's a lot cheaper to learn from someone else's mistakes. But also every single session, there are new sales and marketing tips and hints that we put into the Profit Club agenda so that business owners can go away with new ideas as to how to grow their businesses every single session.
And what time do these sessions start? Is it sort of 5:30 after the broccoli, or when is it?
A little bit later than that. We usually kick off at 7:30, but most people come at 7 a.m. And the reason why we do that is so that people can get away and get on with their day-to-day life at about 9 o'clock. Usually we have them at Rudding Park, brilliant venue. So it's nice and relaxed, easy to park, bit of breakfast, bit of networking, but most importantly, peer-to-peer learning, a group of people coming together who all are very like-minded. They all want to share successes and help each other, because who else is helping small businesses? We've got to help each other, haven't we?
Question about helping small businesses. Are there any grants that small business owners could get to engage in your services, either the Profit Club or Action Coach?
To be honest with you, if there are, I'm not aware of them.
Nor am I, Stuart. I was just checking.
No, the only ones that I know of, I am licensed to offer the digital marketing apprenticeships to local small business owners, and I do recommend that one. The government have put a lot of money behind the idea of small businesses having their own marketing department, especially digital marketing. They're worried that in 5 or 10 years' time, a lot of small businesses will really be struggling if they don't grasp the nettle and really get on board with digital marketing, and in particular social media marketing. So there's a £12,000 grant for small businesses available to get a digital marketing apprentice in their business. So if anyone's interested in finding out more about that, then they can just get in touch with me and I can see if they've got someone in their business that's already qualified, or somebody that they want to take on that would be qualified to do that.
And how should people best get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with me is probably through my website, which is www.actioncoach.com/. /Stuart Wright.
And telephone number?
That's Harrogate 01423 900 760.
Stuart, you've touched on aims. You said that pretty much everybody, and certainly small business owners, should all have aims or objectives. What are yours?
Right now, my number one objective, the one that I get up to every morning when I visualize success, is helping 10,000 business owners either create a business that gives them passive income or maximize the value of their business so that they can sell it for the maximum amount of money.
Passive income is what?
Well, if you have to turn up every day in order to get paid in your business, then I'm afraid by my definition of a business, it's not a business, it's a job. Okay? For me, a business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that can work without you. So unless your business can work without you, for me, it's still a job. A passive income is when you are receiving income from an asset that doesn't require you to actually turn up for it, for the money to actually roll in.
Understood, thank you. We've talked a lot about money, business, all things that I find utterly fascinating. Let's think of let's talk about voluntary matters. Do you do any charity work? Have you done any in the past? If so, why did you do it, and what have you learned from it?
Well, I guess the only thing that I really do that is charitable is I like to look after business startups. I have a belief that, and it comes from the vision actually of Action Coach, which is world abundance through business re-education. You see, I believe that every time a business owner does better, the business does better. When the business does better, there's more profit produced, more tax produced, more welfare, more people get taken care of. When that business does better, the team does better, more people get employed. When more people get employed, more money in the system, again, for welfare. So I believe that business is a force for good. I'm passionate about that. And I believe that the more businesses out there that succeed, the better the world is. So the challenge when I was starting in business, as you heard from my story earlier on, is that back then, and I believe probably now, there isn't that much help for small businesses. So my time is quite often given to help small businesses and startups get off the ground, because I think if they get somebody to help them, they're much more likely to succeed. And tiny little businesses can grow into massive businesses. If you look at Microsoft, if you look at Apple, I think they both started in someone's garage or the back bedroom. So the possibilities are endless.
I think your logic is absolutely sound. Also, looking at your LinkedIn profile, I think you're involved in an asthma charity. Is that right?
Correct, yeah. When I was I was in the ventilation business for quite some time, and I'm a big believer that you need to, if you're going to sell something, you need to be passionate about it yourself. Now, the ventilation products that I was selling were really there to help improve indoor air quality. And one of the biggest issues with indoor air quality is childhood asthma. Now, my own daughter Chloe used to really suffer quite badly with asthma, and there's nothing more terrifying than seeing your own child frightened and unable to breathe. It's like watching them drown, and you don't know why or how to help them. So the products that I used to sell really helped with asthma. So I wanted to get the awareness out there about how serious and widespread asthma was, but also how controllable ultimately it was as well. So I used to volunteer and speak for Asthma UK to help them with that awareness.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Most small businesses need to engage lawyers and accountants at various stages. Now, like in any sectors, there'll be duff lawyers and duff accountants and great lawyers and great accountants. Do you have any tips for small business owners who are engaging either?
Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, you've got to know what the outcomes are that you're looking for. So usually when you engage the services of any service provider, there's either some dissatisfaction with where you currently are at the moment, or dissatisfaction of where you're likely to be if you don't engage the services, or there's a vision of achieving something better. So once you actually know what it is you're looking for, then I would suggest that you have to do your due diligence. And one of the easiest things to do these days in terms of due diligence is look at how well they're rated, How well are they rated on Google, on Trustpilot, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, the recommendations, but also actually seek to speak in person with some of their customers and ask them the relevant questions, the questions that are relevant to you. So if you are trying to achieve an outcome, ask them if they were trying to achieve a similar outcome, and was that outcome achieved by working with that individual or that company.
Any tips on whether they should go with sort of fixed fees or hourly rates, or it's just horses for courses?
I think that at the end of the day, as long as they are getting a return on their investment, that's the most important thing. Whatever the fee structure is, there should be some sort of calculation to say, well, am I actually going to be better off if I use this person's services? Or is it going to cost me something if I don't use their services? For me, in small business, you should never spend a penny of your money. It's always an investment. And the only question to ask is, what will be the return on my investment?
Changing tack, hiring. I think hiring is one of the most difficult things a small business owner can do. And I think you have to make some mistakes until you've got it right. Unless, of course, a coach helps you with that and you don't make those mistakes. Do you have any tips for people who are hiring, perhaps hiring their first member of staff?
Absolutely, and I'm afraid it will be a standard answer from me, and that is you need to learn it before you do it. The challenge for most of us is we just do it on instinct. We look at what someone else has done and think, oh, I'll probably be able to do that as well. You need to have a system, you need to have a process, you need to have a recruitment system in your business. Now, when I'm working with clients, we have a 7-step recruitment process that we put in place for those clients. Why does it need to be so detailed? Because these people are going to be life partners potentially for your business. You need to select your team way more. You need to put more into selecting your team, I should say, than you do in selecting your customers. So it's so important to get it right. So if you don't have some learning, if you don't have a system and a process, then don't be surprised if you don't get the results you're looking for.
Similarly, how can a small business owner set the culture of their organisation?
Well, first and foremost, I think it is incumbent on the business owner to create some sort of vision for people to follow. Now, that vision can't be, well, I want to make £1 million, because I can guarantee you no one is going to want to come and work for you and be engaged, enrolled and inspired by making you more money. So the vision has to be something that will engage, enroll and inspire them. They've got to have a reason to get up in the morning, more than just to earn a living. So you've got to start there. And secondly, when you start to create a culture in a business, that culture has to be aligned to your values as a business owner to begin with, and the values that you want to display to the outside world. Really important that you get people to come and work with you who are in alignment with your values first and foremost.
Here in Harrogate, which social media channels should businesses be using? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, another? Do tell.
Well, it all starts off with your target market. Before you decide what media you're going to use, you have to understand who it is you're trying to reach. Now, some might say, well, I'm business to business, therefore I'm not going to use Facebook. Well, actually, when you consider that 50% of the time spent on the internet is spent on Facebook, you need to ask yourself this question. Let's say you're business to business and you're aiming for business owners. The question is, are business owners on Facebook? If the answer is yes, then you're going to ask yourself, are they only looking at videos of kittens and what other people have had for lunch? Or would they be looking at stuff that may be of interest to them as a business owner? And if the answer is they probably will be, then that's a media that you need to use. But choose the media first and foremost by actually deciding very, very succinctly who your target market is. So important in marketing. In fact, it's 10 out of 10 in marketing. Decide who your target market is first, and then once you know who your target market is, as succinctly as possible, then decide where am I going to find them in their largest concentrations. So if that's on LinkedIn, use LinkedIn. If it's on Instagram, use Instagram. Twitter, or multiple channels. But the great thing about social media is the way that we can now use multiple channels and leverage our time by basically getting all of those channels working really well for us, pushing all of our leads into a central position, which could be our website or a lead page or a click funnel. There's just so much possibility with social media.
I think you said in this podcast already that you've got a coach.
I do.
Good, every coach has a coach. Now, what are you working on with your coach, if you would care to tell us?
I don't mind at all. Most important thing for me now, when I first started working with a coach, I think what was really important for me was that this coach wasn't just a coach, he was also a mentor and teacher. So I learned an awful lot of new skills from my coach. And as the time has gone on, I think that my coaching, the coaching that I've had, has been working more on me as an individual, on getting the best out of me as an individual. It's often said that 80% of success is mindset and 20% is the mechanics of what you actually do. And if you look at sport, any sporting endeavor, you'll find the same thing. So I think that although I've refined my business skills over the years and I still have much to learn, I think the most important thing that I get from my coach is she works very hard on my mindset.
And finally, tough one. Money is no object. What on earth would you be doing? The same thing? Or would you be in the Bahamas, owning an island, etc.? Money's no object. What's Stuart Wright doing?
No, I'd still be doing exactly the same thing. I'm absolutely passionate about the business coaching that I do. It's a journey, not a destination. So as far as I'm concerned at this moment in time, while I'm still above ground, I'll be coaching.
I can see that. Stuart, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. I hope you get many a lead from this and that those people who are wanting to engage with you know a lot more about you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.